on there, and we'll have access to all of that. All right, Professor NFT, thank you so much for joining us. I want to be respectful of your time. I know that as a recent, but first of all, Dr. Professor NFT, congratulations on on that recent accolade. I know that you,
thank you.
Yeah, going through. I know it's not easy. So thank you for making some time for us today. Before we get started, I have some questions, and I know people are brimming with questions about NFTs. I see you. Thank you so much again. Y'all keeping me right. I love the community. Closed captioning is on now. Can you just introduce yourself a little, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here, because we're all confused as to what this is. How are you here doing so much and being so amazing?
I don't know if I'm being so amazing, but I will try. My name is Miriam, and I'm a consumer culture researcher. So I'm a professor of marketing, and I usually work at the intersection of marketing and technology, marketing and anthropology, and I'm really interested in seeing how new technologies, especially disruptive technologies, change the way that culture, sort of operates. And within that spectrum, I did my PhD thesis on binge watching. So I studied, from like the shift between, when we started, collecting DVD collections because we were digitalizing, media content, to when streaming started to happen. When I was at the end of that process, I started seeing new things pop up, like social audio on Clubhouse and stuff like this. And there I started seeing, things about NFTs, like NFTs. And I had no idea what NFTs were, but I started going into some of these Clubhouse rooms and started listening in on what they were and what artists were doing on it. And instantly I became really attracted to the idea. And I started wondering, okay, well, how is this going to be for Black artists? Like, I was very specific and intentional and, seeing whether this was going to be something that was going to provide more opportunities for artists that have been sort of marginalized or have been kept out of certain, arts venues because of gatekeeping or other sort of things. So I started working with some Black artists in the space and doing some interviews. And then, around maybe April of last year, I fell down the rabbit hole. It is really easy to do. Like once you sort of get into NFTs, you sort of like, you fall down the rabbit hole. And I started, looking at other forms of NFTs. So there's like, you can have like art directed, you can have like project directed. There's many, many different forms. And I started, again, I'm looking at issues of diversity in that space, because right now it is a, sort of white techie boys club to a large degree. So I think that there's, the technology itself offers a lot of promise, but there's still, biases as to, who's collecting and who has the, technological know-how to create and who has this and that. So these are all questions that have interested me. So this is who I am. I'm a very curious person, and I'm an educator, and that's me.
That's awesome. Thank you, Miriam, for that. And thank you for seeing that, because I think that's very obvious. It's one of the first things you notice when you walk in is how white and how male these spaces are. And so that's why I was like, hi, can you come? But I wanted to ask a couple of questions just in that light. And I guess the thing I want to start with is, I did my little generic explaining about what an NFT is, what exactly an NFT is. If you could summarize it for the person that's in this room that has no idea, that missed my explanation earlier, which was just my little bogus explanation. if you could explain that in a short way, what is an NFT? Aisha says me. She needs to know. What exactly do we mean?
Okay, so an NFT is a crypto asset. So what it basically it's nothing in of itself, right? So it's not a picture, it's not a painting, it's not a, it's nothing. It is a chain of provenance. So what you can see with an NFT is when you buy an NFT, you're basically sort of confirming a transaction that locates a crypto asset in your in your vault or in your wallet or something like this. So usually actually, so you can have some NFTs that are on chain, meaning the art is actually on chain, and so that's less ambiguous, right? But usually those will be very simple type of art because they'll be 2-bit pixels or something, because the more complex an art piece is, the more expensive it would be to put on chain, right? So most projects are not on chain, they're off chain. They're on IPFS. So you're basically buying a link that's pointing towards something, but that's not even important because let's say that link is broken. What you're buying is the proof that you've made this transaction.
Right. So you're buying the proof. Exactly.
Yes.
That's the thing. So I just had an aha moment. I'm hoping that we have a lot of these because sometimes I look at some of this art. I have a whole like men in those of us that remember, those of us of a certain age remember the whole men in art on a living color. And so I have this whole thing where I'm looking at these NFTs and I have my like glasses on. I'm like, hated it because some of it is really simple and basic. And it's like, why the fuck is anybody paying $60,000 for this? This doesn't make sense. But okay, that makes sense now because it's the more complex art is going to be more expensive to host. Is that what kind of?
Well, yeah. So the more complex it is, the more difficult it is to host on chain because everything on chain is done through like series of computations. So the more complex the computations, the more expense, like the more energy it takes to do them, the more time it takes, and the more expensive it is. So if you wanted to store something like, just like a regular picture on chain, it could cost thousands of dollars, right? So you wouldn't do that.
Okay.
But what you're buying is that proof that you have done that transaction. And every single NFT has like a unique, identifier. And so it is not fungible, right? Which means it's not interchangeable. Like,
right. Not right.
Yeah, like if I give you $1 and you give me $1, like what is this dollar? Have we marked them down? Maybe they're cereals, but are we really looking at them? Probably not, right? So $1 is $1. But in this case, it would be a very specific dollar that I give you, and you're giving me a very specific dollar, and when we switch it. So I would know where this very specific dollar is, and you would know where that very specific dollar is.
Okay.
I actually have a book about this for my kids. It's called Blockchain for Babies. And it explains it very well. Like, it's very simple, right? It's like, if I have an orange and you have an orange and then I send you that orange, then, the blockchain, what it does, it shows me, that transaction has gone through and now you have the orange. And then if you send it to someone else and then you still claim to have it, anybody in the world can actually see you don't have it anymore because it is public ledger, right? Everyone can go to Etherscan and see where something is.
Right. Yeah, that's one of the things I really like about this because I like integrity and honesty, and a lot of people are false flagging, saying they got all this, that, and the other, but you can actually go see the transactions. These are all public records. So if I buy a non-fungible orange from you, then everybody now sees that I bought this thing if they want to go look for it, right?
Exactly. And so that's a lot of times when people try to do some scamming in this network, they'll say, oh, I sent it to you or I did this. And then you can, no, you didn't. Because you can take the person's address and you can see all of the transactions they've done. And if somebody says, I sent you, $100, no, you didn't. It's very simple. Because it's all public.
It's all public. And so this is the thing that I think so many people, and I see the chats coming, so please know that we see them. And also remember, write down your questions so that when you raise your hand, we can pull you up and you can ask the question. But yeah, this is the there's this overwhelming fear that we're going to get scammed. But people are getting scammed in every other way of life all the time because we can't actually see who did what. We just got to take your word for it. So this feels a little more full of integrity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not saying that you cannot get scammed in this space. This space is predatory. There's a lot of scams in this space, but they are not of the nature where someone has tampered with the blockchain, because that is virtually impossible, right? So they're usually, the scams that you'll see in the space are mostly social engineering. So somebody sends you a link and you click on it. Oh, my partner bought this for me. Just putting it up there. It's actually very useful. Anyway, so yeah, so they're usually social engineering, or somebody says, oh, let's do this transaction, I'll sell you this thing, and they send you a link and they don't send you the money. So whenever I talk to people about being onboarded into the space, the first thing I say is turn off your DMs. The second thing I say is never click any links. And never do anything outside of, like platforms that are, regulated.
Right, and that's the thing. I feel like there has to be a bit of common sense when you're dealing with your money. I tell people this all the time, and I think those of us that are on Facebook more so than anything I think Facebookers are just more susceptible to scams more than anybody else in the world, because I can't tell you how many times in a week I see someone who has had their account hacked on Facebook or Instagram. They don't have two-factor authentication set up, or they're clicking a link from somebody that sent them a message that's never sent them a message before in their life, but now they think they're supposed to click this link. And so these are things that I thought we had all learned 20 years ago when we first got online. And I'm learning more and more as I see my own friends get their accounts hacked and taken, or virused, that we're actually we're running into scams. So we're scared of the wrong thing in some ways, and then we're running into the others. So anyway, that's just.
Yeah, 90% of all scams are like, nobody's actually hacking into your computer. It's social engineering. So you're sort of opening a gateway for people to come in, and so that's why it's something that you need to be careful of. And I saw in the chat some people were asking questions like, okay, so is the blockchain the NFT, or so the blockchain is a distributed ledger. And so it's basically just, exactly. Oh, there, I see it on the screen there. It's a database. It's a ledger, and it just collects information. And so it's just, providing this sort of a historical documentation as to what's happening in the space. And that is public.
That is public. That is important to know.
It's very important.
So I often joke that the internet wouldn't exist without sex workers, because no one would have paid attention long enough to keep it interesting. And in the past 5 years, we've seen a lot of just unrelenting attempts to censor conversations about sex and sexuality, while allowing a lot of violence on the internet. And to me, Web3 offers an opportunity for us to really provide, us that are sex educators, to really provide real access, those that are looking for information about their bodies to access. What is that's when I think about, what is censorship like in the NFT world? Does it exist?
So the NFT space it's decentralized. So there is no one governing body that decides what can and cannot be, sort of distributed as an NFT. The community, though, sort of decides what, because you can put out an NFT, and if there's no, buy-in or no visibility, then there's no traction and it goes nowhere, right? So there are, you know, platforms that have decided, like, so you have, like, if you're going to be doing arts-based NFTs, well, you have platforms like Super Rare or Foundation or Nifty Gateway or OpenSea, which will have terms of service and which will decide what can and cannot be traded on their platforms. And there has been some controversy around either like racialized materials, or, you know, materials that were more sexual in nature and stuff like this. But I mean, this doesn't, you know, this doesn't preclude anyone from actually setting up a contract and setting up a community and trading anything that they want, right? You do not need to go through these centralized exchanges.
Okay, so it's just like, yeah, okay. So with these centralized exchanges, because what I'm thinking is, there was a story. Well, I'll make it real easy, so I won't go into the story. But like, let's say I have an NFT that's like a 2D, so it can be on one of these things. It's just a cookie. It's just a cookie. And then I have some cookies that I'm selling on the side. You buy that NFT, and then if you own the NFT, you can come to my party where I have cookies available. Is that something that can happen on NFTs?
So actually, a lot of NFTs value are in sort of like the augmented product. So in marketing, we say, you know, you have your core product and you have your augmented product, and augmented product will have like whatever, your warranties and your stuff like this. Well, a lot of NFTs are just basically token entries to social clubs. So once you're in the club, you can do whatever you want. So one of the big NFT communities is the Bored Apes. And these apes, what they did is, in New York in October or November, they threw a huge party with, you know, Questlove and, you know, Beck and The Strokes or something. Chris Rock was there. And whoever had this NFT token and was able to, you know, get a ticket to get into this warehouse party. So yes, you can do whatever you want, because what it says is this person has bought this token. So you could use a token as a key. You could use, like, there's myriad of opportunities. It just means this person has this, you know, asset, and whatever that means to you, whether that makes them member of some club or whether that makes them, you know, able to have priority purchase for your future drops, or, you know, whatever it means to you, that's it's the technology is open and ripe for innovation.
So I love that, because I keep hearing about the NFT business model, and that's essentially what this is, right? It's like a way, how do you bring NFTs into your business? Because some people in here are in the sex industry, but some folks in here are psychiatrists, psychologists. There's you know, some stay-at-home moms that are looking at businesses. And we have a really diverse community. My collection is just, we're a collection of Black folks, primarily. And so, so in this, but and that are sex positive and queer affirming, and all of the deliciousness that we need to have a whole, healthy, healed Black community, in my mind. So as we look at this and we're thinking about ways that we can incorporate NFT in our business, what is this, like the NFT business model, what you're just talking about with this augmented kind of addition to the NFT?
So, what I would say is that the NFT business model, it works well for people that have communities, right? Just because you can make an in group and an out group, whereas, you know, people that have the NFT become automatically in group, or, you know, members. You could have, you know, each NFT, like you could say this is a token that gives you access for 2022. Right. And then the next year, if you want access again, you could do 2023. We've seen Gary Vaynerchuk. What he basically did is, if you have one of his VFriends tokens, you have access to VCon, so his conference, for 3 years. You know, so you can, it's a very malleable sort of, there's nobody who's setting, well, this is the type of business that you can do around NFTs. If you can, you know, sort of dream it and you can think it and it makes sense in regards to the technology, then you can do it. But right now, what it is often is used as either, you know, a piece of art, which you have perfect provenance for, so you can show that you own it, or profile picture projects, which give you access to certain perks as being members of the community. These are the two really big, and gaming, actually three. So there's also gaming, which is really big right now too. So having, an NFT that's kind of a gaming asset that allows you to, monetize your participation in some game worlds.
Okay. There's so much. I know it's overwhelming for a lot of us that are listening.
Sorry.
It's okay. I don't apologize. It is a lot for us to take in, but it is real interesting. Now, I know you have a project. Can you talk about some of the unique and innovative ways that you're witnessing Black women in the NFT space, including your own project, which I think we shared the link, but if Mackenzie or Jazz, if one of you can throw the link in from Kajabi, so that people can see and witness your project as well. But what are some of the ways that that you're seeing Black women show up in the NFT space?
Well, so I know of a Black woman who's very, very cool, who's called T, who started an NFT coffee club, where basically she shares, if you have one of these coffee cups that you can buy, they're not very expensive. I think maybe $100 or something. It gives you access to her, Discord community. And in there, she does a lot of, sort of events, educational events and other type of events. I've seen like Black photographers. Like actually, I did a photo session with one on Saturday. Her name is Kat Ann, who's selling photography through, I think, Foundation. I've seen, so there's many different ways in which people have started project. I have not seen many PFP projects from Black women. I know that, there's Javon who did Loser Club, which minted yesterday as well. So there are Black actors that are doing projects in the community. And there's music, right? So I know Black Dave in the community is launching music NFTs. I think Latasha is also really big on Zora selling, music NFTs. So I think that people are sort of like Black people are coming into this space, and as always have a lot to bring, in regards to like innovation and culture and just being cool and original and not redoing the same thing 10 times.
Right. So you had a word that you mentioned, PFP. Can you just speak really quickly about what PFP is? Because I know that people are.
Yeah. So I have. Oh, I'm sorry if I didn't say what it was. So I do have a project which is based in a profile picture project, right? So PFP is profile picture, and so these are just basically online identities. So what you would do is if you bought one of these, PFPs, you would probably use it as your, avatar on your socials. So let's say your Instagram or your Twitter mostly, and your Discord. And this would, become sort of your outer representation to this NFT world. Why these things are important is because depending on certain type of PFPs and their popularity, you get more or less legitimacy in the space. And it's like that in real life as well, which is a little bit sad. And so a lot of these PFPs come with these communities. So you're part, like, let's say if you own Javon, he just launched a Loser Club yesterday. And so if you have one of these Loser Club NFTs, you can connect with others that have the Loser Club NFTs and, sort of amplify each other's messages, follow each other, and then probably, I don't actually know what he's doing in the back end, but, in Discord, share resources or, something like that.
Right. Which is really important. My wheels are churning, and I'm sure all of those of us that are doing, I know there are several other sex educators in here like, oh yeah, we could be in this space, or we can create a space where you only have access to because you have this, which kind of gets us off of some of the some of the platforms that are heavily censoring us. I there's a couple questions that are coming up, and we're coming up on the top of the hour, so I want to make sure I leave room and time for other questions. But one question that I want to know is, coming from the old school, Heaux Math idea of you got to spend money to make money, do you think that it's really important for people to actually purchase an NFT before they try to create their own?
It's not a necessary step, but it is a very it's a space where if you come in without understanding the space, it's very hard to navigate. So I would definitely say, it is best to, start by sort of stalking the space or looking at the space, and then, engaging with the space, and maybe then, maybe doing one or like setting up your wallet, doing one or two buys, understanding why people buy certain things, why they wouldn't buy other things, or how it works, what are the dynamics around it. And then I would suggest launching something, because it's very hard to just come into the space. Plus there's a legitimacy issue. If you're not in any communities, it's hard for you to build your community in the space, unless you're bringing a community wholly from somewhere else, right?
Okay, so that's good to know. I've been stalking. I'm in the stalking phase of NFT. I have not purchased an NFT. I had some folks approach me about working with me for some NFT projects. I was like, this was last year, and I was like, shit. One of the things I've been like, oh, wait, hold on. I can't do nothing if I don't know what I'm doing. Let me see. But one of the things that I love the most about this conversation so far is that you, I think everybody is like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. How do you know any of this? And you talked about being like kind of falling into the rabbit hole through Clubhouse. And we all know that Clubhouse just started a little over a year ago, right? So we're not talking about, you're an expert in NFTs. I know, right? I know I would have this, I would cringe too, but it's the reality is that if we're grading on a bell curve, honey, you are the A. and And so it's one of these things where I want people to really hear, like, this is where you're at. You're starting you just launched a project. You're, you're studying on trends, and you're teaching, and this is all very new for you too. So we get to learn what we care about. That's what we're working on as the project. Yes, is the deck. We're moving the deck to an NFT. So, but I think that it's really important to for people to hear that and say, okay, this is something that I can learn about. Yes, it may take some time. Yes, learning is hard, and it becomes harder the older that we get. Yes, these are our realities, but in some short time, if I can just dedicate, okay, I'm going to spend some time just focusing on this one thing. For like, maybe NFTs are speaking to you. Maybe you're an artist, or you're thinking about how to bring your community together, or whatever the case may be, and you don't want to focus on learning about DeFi and using crypto for everyday transactions, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you just want to learn a little bit about NFT and what spaces you can navigate with it, that you can just dedicate your little flow brain, bring that into your mind flow, and just, I'm going to do this as my little hobby for now, and learn and be in this rabbit hole, and that could be helpful. So I appreciate you offering that. I know we have some questions. I see some questions in the chat, but I do want you to also throw your questions in to raise your hand. Sorry, not throw your questions. Raise your hand so I can have you actually ask the question. Then I can get off the screen and people can hear you, and Miriam can answer your questions accordingly. One of the questions though that I saw, and I know that everybody really had this question in their chat also. I mean, a lot of people had this question about NFTs, was how does one even get started? Like, if someone has some art and they're ready to start, we already talked about starting with an NFT, that buying one, or falling in the rabbit hole and getting to learn. Is there any other 1 or 2 step tips that you would recommend for folks who are trying to get started and are interested in learning more, but they want to launch their own NFT? Where do they go?
So, like, some of the complicated mechanics around launching NFTs are usually around developing contracts that are going to be, efficient and are going to actually, represent what you want. So a lot of the more centralized platforms right now will have, like a stock contract, and which makes it really easy to create an NFT. So definitely, if I was starting, or even when I actually started on Nifty Gateway, right? So I started buying NFTs on Nifty Gateway because you could just go there and buy it with a credit card. And I didn't know anything about wallets and all this kind of stuff yet. So I just, was able to buy something with a credit card, and that was easy, right? And then if you're ready to, go further, then you can set up a wallet, usually something through like MetaMask or Coinbase. And then you can interact with platforms like OpenSea. OpenSea is a good one because it's, it's an aggregator. There's many, many different types. It's not gated as much as some of the other like Foundation or Super Rare, where they curate the people on the platform. And so you can get like NFTs that are more affordable and that come from a wider variety of actors. And if you do decide you want to mint, you want to create an NFT, well, being on a platform like OpenSea is a good one, because then you can use their general storefront contract. So it can be almost as easy as like uploading a picture and, deciding some characteristics and then clicking on a button. So it can be that simple.
Great. Okay.
But it can be very complicated too if you decide to.
It can be. But I like the simple. We got to start at the simplest. So thank you for that. I have Maisha Devi, who is going to join for a question. Go ahead, Maisha. And hello, love.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for putting all this together. I'm going to try to not ask a whole bunch of questions right now. So the way it sounds when you hear people talk is, hey, you do this artwork, you put it up there and you put it out there and then you make money and all of a sudden, you got millions. My first question is, how does one make money off of an NFT? Or do you not? Like, how do you make money off an NFT?
So that is like that, idyllic, way of looking at things. It's not that simple. You don't just put something up there and then it automatically sells out, right? So just like anything, you need to promote it. You need to get eyeballs on it, right? People have to want to buy it. And so where people are really active right now when it comes to this is usually on Twitter or on Instagram, usually mostly Twitter, because that's where a wide variety of collectors are. But in order to do that, you need to, sort of interact with some collector communities. So people who are, currently buying NFTs that are in the genre of art or the type of art, or if you already have, or if you're an artist that already has like a fan base or a collector base, well, you can onboard your own collectors and have them, go through the steps and buy your art as an NFT.
Okay. Second question: if you put your NFT out there, your artwork, what stops someone else from just like taking it and selling it as theirs? Like, how does that work?
Nothing.
Okay.
Right? So anybody can click right on it, right? Like anything. But what happens is that only the person that actually owns the NFT can prove that they have, the actual rights, or that they have actually purchased it. So it's like anything, right? Right now I could click on Coca-Cola, the logo, and I could put it on something. I'd get sued, but, I could do it. There's nothing that prevents anybody from copying it. What you can do is so let's say somebody else were minted as an NFT, and it has happened. Well, you can prove it. Like, this is the date. Look at this. This is the transaction. And this is the original, right? And so usually if you can do that, you can get it taken down from all the centralized exchanges, because you have proof that you're the original creator and owner of it.
Okay. So my son is one of my sons. He's an artist. He's trying to learn all of this stuff. You know, I can't remember where he put his artwork up, but he put it up and then he hadn't signed it. But, you know, he thought he needed to sign it. I thought he needed to sign it because that, as an artist, that's what you do. But apparently you don't need to sign it because the long wallet thing is the proof that it's yours, right? That's the signature. But then, of course, he wanted to take it down, but he couldn't take it down. So once you put your stuff on these platforms, you cannot take the artwork down unless you pay a fee, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to be sure on that. So be sure before you put it up there.
Yeah, because definitely, even me, like let's say I put something up for sale. The minute I do that, that's a transaction. It goes out in the blockchain. If I want to stop that transaction, so I could do it for a certain amount of time. So when I do something, when I put something up for sale, I'll usually put it for 3 days or a day or something like this. And then it'll expire. That transaction will expire in the time. But if not, then I have to pay the gas to take it down.
Right. Okay.
That's another transaction.
Yeah. We did some research on that one. That was fun. Okay. So the last part is you talked about using it for like memberships. So like I have a membership group, right? For clients and stuff. I want to, let's say hypothetically somewhere in the future, I want to do an NFT because it'll give you access to something, right? How exactly would that work? There's this NFT, they would go to like an OpenSea, they would purchase it? They like, how do they actually use that to then get into the membership group?
Well, so what you would do is you would like issue some NFTs. It could be through something like OpenSea. And then like they would purchase that NFT. What then you would need to do, let's say if you wanted to have a gated community, like on Discord or some way, you would need to like have a way to confirm that those people have the NFTs before you let them in. So some people do this like manually where they'll, you know, just send me the address of your wallet and I'll go check that you have it because I can do that. You know, you give me your address, I can see what you have, right? And then welcome them in. Or there's some automated systems like collab.land. So I can put it in the chat. It's called collab.land where, not collaborator. Sorry, it auto-corrected. It's collab.land. And what it does is you can set like a couple of communities that you're like, I want to give access to people who have this token, this token, this token. And then they will sort of help you manage that access.
Okay. And so my last question is like baseline, what is the true benefit of having an NFT? Like how would it benefit me to create this art, to put it out there? Going back to am I receiving currency? Am I creating community? Am I doing both? Am I increasing my wealth? What is the benefit of this?
So as I said, it's a tool. So the way in which you use it will determine how it might be beneficial to you. Because as the baseline, an NFT is not like, it is a very neutral thing, right? So there are plenty of NFTs that, you know, flop and do nothing and are definitely not beneficial for their creators. But if you can find ways to leverage it within your community or to use it to, you know, to an end that makes sense for you or your business, then it becomes beneficial, right? So I have plenty of NFTs that are, you know, dead weight in my wallet. Plenty, you know, just an NFT is not a sure value in of itself.
I'll stop there because I got tons of more questions, but it requires research. So thank you.
No worries.
Those are all really good questions, Maisha. Thank you so much for asking them. I'm sure that was really useful to not just me, but to a host of other people in the room. And I'm sure folks that will watch the replay will appreciate you. So do not feel like, thank you. All right, Cinnamon, I'm gonna bring you on up and.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for this. So I have two questions. The first question is that you mentioned earlier that uploading content that it's not as simple as uploading like an image because it burns a lot of energy. And I've been hearing a lot about how the amount of energy used in NFTs impact the environment, and often in like, you know, in poor communities. And so I'm wondering if there's something that you have to do to make sure that the content that you're uploading as NFTs are causing minimal damage to the environment. And two, do you have to do something special to code the images or audio or video files that you want to sell as NFTs?
Okay, so you don't need to do anything special to code them. It's if you use an automated process, like through something like an OpenSea or Hicken or something like this, it will do that work for you. The question of energy efficiency is usually very chain specific. So there are some blockchains that are less, I'm looking for the word in English, I have it in French, that are less energy sucking. This is not the good word. You know, that are less, you know, énergivores, that are less consumptive. Yeah, that's good. Sorry, thank you. Sometimes the words, they do not come in English. And so you'll have, there's differences, right? So there's some blockchains, and I think this might be getting complex things, but some blockchains are proof of work, and you know, some blockchains are proof of stake. And when you have to do the proof of work, which means it has to go through all of the computations to, you know, make sure that, you know, the block is actually, you know, the right one. And that takes more energy. And Ethereum is a proof of work. For now, it may change in the future because they're working towards that. It's a proof of work blockchain, which means that any transaction on that network take a lot of energy. Tezos is a proof of stake. Matic is a proof of stake, meaning that it's a lot less, like there's less fees to transact on those blockchains. So they're like, when you hear about something like gas fees, that's like the price that you pay to miners to do the transaction. And if you go on a proof of stake blockchain, there's a lot less fees, like we're talking pennies. Whereas if you go on a proof of work blockchain like Ethereum, sometimes if gas is really high, it can be hundreds of dollars to do a transaction. And so you can select blockchains that are greener, that are more, you know, in line with the environment. And there are also some projects out there that help you offset the carbon footprint of what you're doing. So you can tie that into your projects. There's a lot of things that can be done. But okay, it is a concern in the community as well.
Thank you so much. And then the other question, I have a non-binary child who's an artist, and they were just asking about stolen content, because it appears that there have been people who have stolen stolen NFTs and then resold them as their own, and wanted to know about how, you know, if there is any recourse for stolen content on the blockchain.
There's no real recourse, right? Because this is unregulated. But usually what happens is, if you can prove that the person is using your work, then you could probably get it taken off of all of the main exchanges like OpenSea or Nifty Gateway or Foundation or Rarible. All of these main exchanges will not, you know, but it's just the same as, you know, in real life. You could do a painting or drawing, and I see it and I copy it and I then sell it as my own. There's this is not there's no protection in the space against that. But since there is like historical data, because the blockchain is public and there's historical data, it's a lot easier to prove when it does happen. Right? Because let's say I made a painting and then you came to my house and you saw that painting and you replicated it. how do we prove who made it first? But if it's on the blockchain, it's very simple to, sort of prove what was minted first and who was the original artist. So I would tell them not to worry too much about that.
Okay, thank you so much. I just have one last question because I know other people have questions. So I noticed that there's a lot of connection between Discord and the NFT space. I live with an acquired brain injury, and so I find things like Discord, Signal, Telegram to be really overwhelming. Are there other alternatives for NFT holder to build community with NFT holders that are more accessible?
I'm going to be very honest. Right now, the two main ways that people build community are Twitter and Discord. I personally do not love Discord. I find it overwhelming. It is extremely intense. What I would say then is to move towards a social audio. So there's still really good communities being built up on Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse. And so if that is more accessible or easier,
Someone has unmuted. Can you unmute yourself back? It's got to be an admin, so because everybody else can't mute. So host, please, co-host, please mute your mic.
So yeah, I would, if social audio is more accessible to you, if that is an easier way to interact, there's good interactions in that space as well.
Awesome, thank you. Thanks, Cinnamon. Sorry for the interruption. Thank you for that question. I do think that I'm really curious about that as well. I do not love Discord either. It's on my phone and I look at it. I have all these NFT groups that I've navigated myself in, and I open up. I don't even know where I'm supposed to go. I'm like, this is stupid. Every time I go to Discord, I run away. But I have found great success learning in Twitter Spaces and learning in Clubhouse, which I love Clubhouse, and I'm actually glad that it kind of piped down because it's better for my brain too. Because it was a little, Clubhouse was a little hot in December last year, 2021 or 2020, it was hot. So it's calmed down a bit. It's a good place to actually hear and be heard now. But I also think that, one of the things I'm really a fan of is building our own spaces. And if we're using these other places where we're hosting our communities, and like I'm hosting my community on Kajabi, right? That there is no reason, or I don't think that I couldn't use an NFT for exclusive access to whatever space I create. Just because a lot of people are on Discord don't mean our people are on Discord. And so as we get to know our audience and who we're trying to connect with, creating a space that makes it accessible for them. It might be the space you're already in. It might just be, being creative in your mind, like that's your art, is trying to figure out how to navigate that. So, okay, we have a little bit of time left. I know we have a hard stop at 30 minutes after the hour. We have Shandy, excuse me, your hand is up, so I'm gonna go ahead and invite you, and then Amina, if we have time, we'll get to you, and then we'll probably close out with that. So go ahead and unmute. There you go.
Thank you so much for coming and doing this, because NFTs are what I'm trying to figure out. Like, I'm on Rarity Tools just window shopping. And the issue with that is I don't know what other people are going to want to buy. I'm supposed to pick this according to what's cool to me. And then I'm over here and I'm recognizing what the situation is with this whole Bored Ape community and why a collection is it. It's kind of like how when you're like buying a .com, like you'll sit back and you'll have one idea and then you'll try to patent every variation of that so no one could come and copy it. And that creates a collection. Okay, cool. But like, then what? I see these people have these collections and they're all ranked according to popularity. And then there's a secondary ranking according to rarity. Rarity determines price. All of this shit is on Ethereum. I just found out 10 seconds ago that Bored Ape being like at 65 Ethereum, that's killing the whole entire environment. And there's about 7,000 people in that group. Whoa. Okay, so all the coolest stuff that would make the most money on a resale is burning down to Amazon, is what's happening. And so then I would need to go to OpenSea to find something that's on Tessos or Matic. I've seen those. They're not very popular and they're not doing a whole bunch of shit. And there's no telling what it's about to do, because people can use them for all kinds of stuff, good stuff or bad stuff. Because I could be like, hey, I've created a club that sells babies. If you got this NFT, you're in this club. Ha ha ha. That's the secret. So that means now I got to for real go into all these overwhelming ass groups to figure out who the community is in the first place. Like, this is a whole homework assignment. I'm trying to do this like how I was doing crypto. I want to be able to come into it, look at a graph, be like, oh, this is about to pop. Hell yeah, I'm about to buy some of this. It's not working out like that. I don't understand. Then it has a whole bunch of stuff on there about traits. So they break shit down into like characteristics. You know, it has colors and it says rare and it's pink. What the fuck? So people who are buying these NFTs are asking questions about how many different traits are incorporated in each picture. What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
I understand. I understand your frustration. So I understand it because I live it constantly. Actually, I find that if I decide that something is, you know, beautiful and I like the art, chances are it won't do well. I don't know why, but that is the metric. And if something is stupid, like a squiggly line and like a Kevin head or something, it's worth like $1 million. Like, I don't get it. It is extremely frustrating to me, extremely frustrating, because I see a lot of really good art that has a lot of trouble making it in this space, and then I see really, really asinine, you know, low effort, cash grab stuff that make it. Like a blue cat with a pipe and a cigarette hat, and like you're just like, what? But yeah, so just to your yeah, there are many blockchains. So Matic, Tezos, Cardano, there's many. The only real money being made in the NFT market right now is mainly, and so if I had to rate them, I would say Ethereum, Solana, Magic, like Ethereum, Solana, Magic, Tezos, Cardano, Matic. So that would be my, like, you know, like this. There's a lot of talking about, you know, how it's bad for the environment, and there's, you know, but if you really look at it, it depends on how you're seeing the energy input in and the energy input out. A lot of things that we do are bad for the environment, energy input in, energy input out. There's some places like in Vancouver where they use the energy, like the heat made from miners to heat, you know, communities. It really depends on a lot of things. And it's often like when people talk about that, it's like a shock value thing, right? Like, oh my God. But then if you look at what we spend on energy for other stuff, you'd be like, oh my God, like, what are we doing, right? So there's a lot of, you know, when they say like, you know, for one NFT, you could power a house for, you know, a year or something like this. First of all, that's not true. And second of all, houses are extremely energy efficient, because if they weren't, we would all be in trouble. So there's a lot of things that we need to demystify about that energy, you know, assumptions. And a lot of these bigger blockchains are moving towards proof of stake, which will be a lot more eco-friendly. When you're talking about, you know, what projects are going to pop off, that's anybody's guess. Often, whatever projects can afford to pay the biggest influencers, right? Like the minute you've got a big influencer in there, like a big name who comes in and says, I like this, you know, little blue cat, all of a sudden that blue cat's worth like $5,000. It makes no sense. I like to invest in communities that grow organically, which means that they, you know, engage with their with the members of their community and provide value to the members, and people vice versa see that value, they're not the ones making hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So that's a little bit more difficult. And then yes, depending on, you know, the rarity traits, there's like a bell curve. So if your item is very clean and has no, you know, like no hats and whatever, then it can be very rare because it has no traits. And so that's like, you know, 4 trait or something, it can be very rare. Then you can go towards the middle, which is what everybody has, around like 3, 4, 5 traits or something. And then that's not as rare. And then, you know, on the other side, if you have like 20 traits, you're very rare as well. And then, yeah, depending if your trait is golden or blue or blue. The project decides what is rare. And the way you decide it, so I'm on a project now, the way you decide it is you say, okay, well, we're only going to put this type of afro hair on, you know, 10 characters. Immediately it becomes rare. So it's as a sort of like a measure of how often it shows up in the collection. If you just want to come into a project because you like the project, you like the founders, you like what they're doing, the community, then it doesn't matter. You can buy the floor. You can buy the cheapest one and you'll get the same perks. If you're there for investing, then if you come from crypto, there are tools you can use, like there's Dune Analytics or Nansen. And what these tools do is that they will look at everything that's, you know, online, you know, and for sale. And they'll tell you for the price and the rarity, this is the best deal so that you can go and buy it. And there's also in these tools, they have, you know, they'll show you what's minting fast. So what's being really popular. And so you can get on the bandwagon if you want to. It's extremely time consuming. I don't do that. It is extremely time consuming. It is a space that is very difficult to navigate and that is extremely time consuming. But I understand the frustration. I have the frustration too. Because, you know, all of a sudden you have, you know, like motherfuckers, which are just like these little guys with like heads and like they're just looking at their desk and those are worth $3 now. Like, what? And I saw them and I'm like, I'm not going to buy that. I don't find it, you know, pretty. But then you know, and so this is going to happen. This is also a space where you have to be okay with missing out. You have to be okay with, you know, not making the right call because it's going to happen time and time again. I've sold things that I never thought would go anywhere and all of a sudden they yeah. FOMO is high in this space. Yes, be okay with it. FOMO is intense. And the more you like go with the FOMO, the more you're trying to like, you know, just jump onto all, you make the most mistakes. So just, you know, start chill. Like just look at what you like, look at the communities you like, the communities that have been stable for, you know, 2, 3, 4 months. I would go with that.
I think that yeah, I came from a gambling background. FOMO is fear of missing out.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, I played a slow game, played a long game. Vegas has never whooped my ass, not once. And so when I hear that, I'm just like, yep, that sounds right. It sounds about right. Where if you're trying to move eagerly, and the rabbit hole is deep, right? I think that's one thing to always realize, that this rabbit hole is deep. So take your time. It may not pop the same speed that something else popped, like cryptos maybe came easier, but there may be somebody who's like, this is the key to, I see myself in this space. And so this is an opportunity for you to get your taste buds wet, for you to wet your whistle, for you to start thinking about like, how can I create? And then also for you to go follow Professor NFT and see the projects that she's working on, get to see who because that's what I do. I follow her and then I started seeing who she was talking about. And if she's retweeting somebody 5, 10, 11 times, I'm probably gonna go follow them because I'm like, all right, well, she keeps talking about them. Let me see what they talking about, because this is how you learn in this. It's moving faster. The world is moving a little bit faster. And so the way that we learn is going to be a little bit different. And so I know some of y'all are like, wait, what were they just talking about? I don't know. Some of the stuff I do know, so I just sent out the guide so that you can have some of the acronyms that you heard being mentioned. So you have some little snippets. So go look at that. It's in the Facebook group. It's in the WhatsApp chat, and it will be it will be everywhere. I'm trying to make this so y'all can have a consumable product at the end of the day. She is over here writing down stuff so fast, so we are constantly updating the stuff so that you can have access, and you take a piece of it and you bite it and you chew it and you swallow it. Don't try to fit the whole pie in your mouth. It's not going to fit. This is not a game of deep throat here. This is a game of slow, sensual, abundance, welcoming, dancing, learning, and creating. That's what we're doing here. So I want to honor your time. Aman, please save your question and share it with me, and I'll make sure that we, kind of come around to it or figure out, maybe I'll slide in and the DMs and see if there's more questions that we get throughout the day, and we'll go there. But I want to honor your time, Miriam. I know that you're busy, and I'm super grateful for the work that you're doing and for your making yourself available for this group today. So I want to say thank you for that. And I shared your contact information is Professor NFT on Twitter. And it's and there's more information, and the project that she started is also in the group. So you can go and look and check out the project. It looks pretty cool. I got a quick glance at it, and we'll go from there. Thank you so much. I'll let you. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say one tiny last thing. This space is brand new. So if you want, and if you can, you build content in this space, there is bandwidth for that. So if you want to, create content like, YouTube or newsletters or anything, there is space for that. And it's a good way to get legitimacy in the space. So I always say this because it's a space that's sort of devoid of like real content. So if you come to the space with something real, you can have a good visibility.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah, you see, we're still very early. I feel late because it's moving so fast. I'm sure you feel late too, but it's okay. Learn, grow, and in 5 years, the other people that will be late and we'll be like, no, we know we doing already. See there? So go ahead and get yourself there. All right, Miriam, thank you so much. If you all have any other questions, and you can go ahead, Miriam, you can hang out. It's up to you, but we appreciate you. For the rest of y'all, we have a little bit of break. We're going to do no, we don't. We have a very short break. Bye, Miriam. We're going to pop out, and then we're going to come back in and do some waking up our creative energy, some sacral chakra exercises, there's a couple of coaches that I will be adding into the space so that you could have access. I saw some good questions in the DMs about specific projects. I can't advise on those, but there are folks out there that can give you some information, and they are not charging. They are not charging. I'm gonna repeat that again. They are not charging. You can go into these spaces and ask questions like this that you're asking and get them answered for free. One of the biggest scams you're going to run into is people trying to charge you for an answer that they just found doing some basic 1-2 step work on Google. And you could do that step work, or you can go into these spaces on Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse and just raise your hand, get on the stage, and ask a specific question. People love talking about something that they think they know more than you about. And in this field, that's a lot of stuff, right? So when you go into some of these spaces, you will see folks excited to grab a microphone and feel like they can teach you something. And I think that's one of the reasons why we as women have not learned as much, because we're tired of men telling us shit. And and that's who's in the space. There's just this collection of men that just can't wait to tell you that they know more than you. And for a lot of us, let's just be honest with that shit. We're like, all right, I'm done. I don't want to go now. Never mind. Forget it. I ain't trying to hear it. Y'all motherfuckers know every goddamn thing. Shut the fuck up. I get it. I get it. I get it. But go ask the questions. Go and be, hey PJ, go ask the questions. Go and be curious. Invite yourself to more curiosity, and don't be scared to learn. Don't be scared to learn. There's nothing you can fuck up in just the learning process. And the whole idea of fucking up is wrong anyway, because who said you fucking up? Just fuck up some shit. Like, that's for real. So, okay, I'm gonna let y'all go. We're gonna take a bio break. I have to go and release my bladder and get a water refill. We'll be back in here for a little more work in a few minutes. So come on back.